All right, good afternoon again, everyone. We're almost at the home stretch, so we've still got a few more very exciting stories to hear. And coming up next for you is Regeneus, and hear from the company. We'll hear from John Martin, who is Executive Chairman. So John, let me turn it over to you.
Thanks very much, and it's late in the day, so I know my job is to get your attention and keep it at this stage when you're thinking about having a drink. Regeneus, for those of you who don't know, is a Sydney-based company that's listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. Some of you may know that Mesoblast too is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, so we're the Sydney horse in the cell therapy race, and Mesoblast is the Melbourne horse that's well down the track. I too have an important notice, but I won't read it to you as my lawyer suggested. Very quickly, today I'm going to tell you about a company that we think is an emerging leader in cell-based regenerative medicine. We focus on adipose tissue as our source of material. We established ourselves in 2007. We're a little different to a lot of companies that are presented today in the sense that we have early commercial cell products and have had them in market since 2008 in various forms, and I can talk to you about that as we go through it. We have significant clinical experience, so not just in trial data, but also in the hands of veterinarians and human clinicians, because we have both a vet and a human business. Our origins, in fact, as a company, was in the vet med space, and we've morphed from being a vet med only into a vet and human business. We listed last September, and we've had a good run with the market since then, and we've also had a pretty strong operational performance, meeting some milestones early, which got investors interested in us even further. We've got a diverse and growing product portfolio. We think our competitive positioning is quite distinct, and hopefully by the end of the presentation you'll agree with me. And we've got 4 product platforms that underpin our business, and we've got 11 patent families that I think all up represent about 30 separate patents. This is a very quick snapshot just to make my point in that we listed in Australia in September. We raised $10.5 million Australian, and that really saw us as a post-money company with about 45 mil. Since then, we've been able to move the dial up to, we've traded as high as 66 cents in a few people's moments of excitement. But our job very much is to gain the investor support and to demonstrate that we can deliver what we said we deliver in our IPO prospectus, and so far we're doing okay. Very quickly, since IPO, there have been 2 or 3 critical milestones that the market's responded well to. One was that we decided to accelerate our off-the-shelf human program that we call Cryoshot, which is an allergenic platform. And we've targeted the Japanese market in particular because of its favourable conditions, and a number of people today have talked about how the Japanese have really set themselves up for a fast pathway in cell therapy. And being in Australia, we're pretty much in the same similar time zone to the Japanese, and we see it as an appealing opportunity to be able to take our phase 2A data and then move into a phase 2B trial in Japan in a relatively short space of time. In the vet space, we have an immunotherapy, which is an autologous therapy, and that got a green light from the Centre of Veterinary Biologics to go straight through to market. So we've been marketing that product in the US this calendar year. And the other thing we've done is we've positioned our trial in canine off-the-shelf cell therapy for osteoarthritis well, and we'll be hoping to kick that off by the end of the year or first thing in the 2015 year. That's very much a roadmap around our product portfolio. Diverse, accelerated and high growth are the 3 words I'd like you to associate with that portfolio. As you can see, it does have a human and veterinary element to it. And as you can also see, we have an autologous adipose in the dark green line, MSC platform. We've got an allogeneic adipose MSC in the light blue line, and we've also got an autologous tumour cell therapy in the yellow line. So we're really running a sort of a 4 platform, but 3 major themes through there. Our major disease conditions that we focused on, osteoarthritis and other musculoskeletal conditions, oncology, and we also have an acne inflammatory skin condition, stem cell cream that's in the pipeline as well. So I'll talk about these things as I do my presentation. One thing I will just acknowledge quickly is that On the market side, you'll see that what we've done as a business is largely use the Autologous platform to accelerate the business. And for reasons which I'll discuss as I go through the presentation, autologous cell therapy really can be used in certain markets like Australia, where the regulations are maybe more permissive than America, to advance the clinical phase of your technology development. So when people say to me, why allogeneic, why autologous? Autologous really is a sharp edge for getting clinical data and getting trial data out and done. And the market is also very receptive to it because there's a certain acceptance early on, I think, of autologous therapy over allogeneic. I'll just talk about our high-Q cell product. That was really an evolution of our vet product. We started off developing a vet in clinic technology for veterinarians. Very quickly, human doctors in Australia were interested in this space. There's not a lot of treatment options for those with osteoarthritis. And a key thing in Australia is that the use of a transplant of cells by a medico, an autologous transplant, is seen as an act of medicine in Australia, not an act of making a drug, which is a very important distinction with the US market. So our equivalent of the FDA, called the TGA, sees that as medical practice. And there's a specific exemption for doctors who do autologous transplants of any type: bone, vein, and cells. And so therefore we're able to move our technology straight into the human space. So what we've developed is essentially a point of care technology. It's in the clinic. It's under medical supervision. We provide essentially a therapy back to the treating medico, who are specialists, either orthopaedic surgeons or sports med specialists, within 60 minutes. And the patient is treated shortly after the fat harvest is done, which again takes about 15-20 minutes. It's an exempt biological, and the excess cells are stored. So effectively what you're producing is an autologous biobank that in some ways starts to get across to the benefits of an allogeneic product, which is effectively the off-the-shelf nature of those cells. So what we do have is creating a bit of an off-the-shelf cell bank for those who are interested. The market opportunity, like a lot of advanced markets, you'll tend to find about 15 to 20% of most developed world populations suffer from bone and joint disease, particularly osteoarthritis. There are no cures. There's joint replacement at one end, and there's pain medication and other types of sort of managing the pain therapies. We're clearly focused on identifying that treatment gap where we think biologicals can play its place. In Australia, for example, there are 83,000 joint replacements a year. Now that works out to be about 2 or 3% of those who have osteoarthritis, and interestingly, that number of joint replacements tends to mirror other advanced economies. So effectively, you can do your own maths on the size of markets, but joint replacement is an interesting proxy for us, because what we find is that our therapy targets those, because not many people really look forward to joint replacement, and so we are able to, with the specialists, find that an increasing market are those seeking to delay joint replacement, or alternatively, high-performance sports people who are looking for, the sort of what I describe as the anti-inflammatory and the pro-growth benefits that come with cell therapy that a lot of people have talked about today. In terms of clinical validation, even though technically the doctors can practice this, and many procedures that are done in hospitals don't actually need clinical data. For example, arthroscopy, which is a regular orthopaedic procedure, rarely has clinical data to support it, but a lot of people do it because it's just medical practice. We actually went out and did a phase 2 trial in Australia. We also established a joint registry, because what we wanted to do was have 2 prongs of data. One was from a more traditional clinical trial. The other was really to build out a 5 or 10-year registry to really start to track what's going on with these patients. So far in the patient registry, we've got over 440 people, over 1,000 joints, and that's within 2 years. My goal is really to have thousands and thousands of joints we're able to track carefully over time. And we have a detailed paper on the data that comes with that, and if anyone wants to see that, I'm happy to give them the detailed paper. I won't bog my 15 minutes though down with discussion of all the data from that. In terms of our priorities, we'll be building out our treatment footprint in Australia, which is a in-clinic model, so therefore we set up ourselves in the clinic and the procedures are done in clinic. We're looking to launch in Singapore shortly, because it's a market that we've identified as being a real biotourism hub in Asia, and the Singaporean government is interested in bringing cell therapy to that market. And also we'll continue to generate our further musculoskeletal data for other treatments that clinicians are interested in. For example, clinicians are interested in RA and the potential for autologous cell therapy to treat RA with limited treatment options. Things like arthritis of the face, facial pain and those sorts of things. All musculoskeletal conditions where clinicians can now start to use this technology as one of the tools in their toolbox when they have very few treatment options. The next thing I want to talk about is what I call Cryoshot, which was originally developed as our off-the-shelf therapy for the vet market, identifying canine and equine osteoarthritis. The reason why we developed this was because the vets said to us, after they got comfortable with an autologous cell therapy in the clinic, they said, we want something that's shorter, sharper and cheaper. We're comfortable with cell therapy now. So we then went away and developed essentially an off-the-shelf product. From one donor fat, we can get about 100,000 vials from a single donor. There's about 2 to 3 million cells in every one of those vials. It's delivered frozen to maximise shelf life and viability. So essentially, we manufacture it. It's shipped in Australia again. There's quite a permissory vet regulation that allows you to do field trials without having a GMP manufactured product. What that really allows is innovation and product development on the fly. And so what we did was, this is our third generation of this product, so we've evolved it as we've gone through, and now we've done over thousands of treatments in the field with about 80 vets, including equine and canine specialists, right through the general vet practices, who are very familiar with the product now. So in terms of the allogeneic space is one that we know well. We've been in it for a number of years, and we've actually dealt with a number of the issues that some of the speakers have talked about today, everything from, product delivery, manufacture, pricing, all those sorts of things. And they're good issues to deal with, but we've dealt with them primarily in the vet space in terms of off the shelf. The market opportunity, interestingly, for animals is not dissimilar for humans. About 20% of animals suffer from arthritis, and many of them are put down for that reason, particularly dogs. Current treatment options, again, are anti-inflammatories, but they have side effects. And there's a 500 million global market for animal anti-inflammatories, and we intend to target that with this off-the-shelf product. We think we'll be one of the first in the market with a truly off-the-shelf product that will mostly be distributed by one of the vet pharma businesses. In terms of our validation, again, we've got extensive field trial clinical data. For this, we also have over the experience of over 2,500 treatments administered with the practices that I've discussed. What we're really seeing is a reduction in pain and mobility for the animal within 10 days. It's again what we see in humans, interestingly, with our autologous product. The one thing I can say is that because we started off in vet, we were interested to what extent the human experience with cell therapy mirrored the vet experience, and I can say it's pretty similar. For example, what we see primarily is 10 to 14 days is the time in which both animals and humans both start to see the effects of managing the inflammatory process down and starting to see quality of life and mobility increase. So it's interesting how both the vet and human businesses are tracking similarly in terms of experience of the products. Now we've commenced a randomised controlled trial for canine Cryoshot in Australia in advance of completing our US trial, and the reason for that is really to de-risk the trial in the US and to make sure that our trial design is nailed down, because the last thing we want to do is have trial design as an issue in a registration trial with the FDA. We've established a partnership with Lonza for the production of the cells for the US trial, and we've done it. And so our priority is really about the tech transfer to Lonza, signing off on that, signing off on all those elements, the final elements of product characterisation and manufacture, including potency and assay issues that everyone's talked about today. And so we're expecting that the product to be through that in the calendar year 15. And so we're really thinking that if all goes to plan, we'll be pushing that product out globally through most major markets in late 2015, 2016. On the back of our success with our animal Cryoshot product, we decided to develop a human off-the-shelf product. We had the technology, we knew it worked, and so what we did was we started to say, well, our autologous business will service one part of the market, but long term, what really is going to have a big impact is an allogeneic human off-the-shelf human off-the-shelf product. And so therefore, particularly with our expertise in musculoskeletal conditions, primarily arthritis, we thought that's going to be our target. So that's what we decided to do. We put human tissue into our technology platform, and we're able to get at the moment about 500,000 vials from one donor material. Now that really deals with a number of the regulators' issues about batch-to-batch certainty and what have you. They want to see production being done at a certain level to be able to give them certainty that you're not dealing with multiple donors all the time. And so we're pretty comfortable that we're going to be able to get across all the production issues here after our experience in the vet business. We're going to have ethics approval for a 2A safety study that we're doing, which is really, as I said, targeting the Japanese opportunity over the next 24 months. And I've already talked about how Japan really sets themselves up, in my view, as one of the most attractive places to take off-the-shelf therapies in the near term. And I'm intrigued as to whether, in fact, it influences other regulators around the world as to seeing cell therapy as having de-risked to a large extent phase 3 trials and bringing in what I describe as a near-return conditional licence regime. I'd be surprised if the Australian government doesn't respond to what the Japanese have done. I think the Korean government has already set themselves up for a similar type of arrangement, so it'll be interesting to see whether it flows around other regulators. Another part of our platform is we have a novel autologous cancer vaccine, and that technology actually is not our own. We've licensed that technology from the Colling Institute of Medical Research, which is a joint venture between the University of Sydney and Royal North Shore Hospital, which is one of the major hospitals in Sydney. And we have the exclusive worldwide rights for that, for vet, because we saw it primarily as a vet therapeutic, but we've also looked to develop it for the human space as well. Recently in Cancer Immunology Research, I think last month, the initial paper out of that study was done. Essentially what's going on here is that there was a lot of research done in a preclinical animal model, and what it really showed was that if you take a cancer biopsy and you apply streptavidin and some other what I describe as secret sources, what you can do is then you can really get the immune system to respond very, very strongly to the combination of the way that cancer biopsy is presented on the streptavidin as a bacterial protein. It's proved particularly successful, particularly on re-challenges. You can see the data, very, very strong on re-challenge. So what we did was we got involved, opened up our vet network to this technology, took it out of rats and mice in an induced, what we call the induced disease model, and we took it straight into the vet market. And again, the regulatory environment in Australia is permissive for an autologous therapy like this. And we got ethics approval, and over 70, 80 dogs have been treated. There have been remarkably strong, the safety is not an issue, and there's been remarkably strong early efficacy. This is just an open label study, but what we saw was that it certainly gave us enough encouragement to go to the US, where we went to the Centre for Veterinary Biologics and said, we'd like to look at this product coming to the US as a novel cancer vaccine, an autologous vaccine. And we were surprised when the Centre for Veterinary Biologics said, well, we think that we'll let the market sort this out. Why don't you pass straight through to commercialisation and keep us informed of the process? So we're faced with a challenge. It's a good challenge to have, but of launching this product in the US this year. And so at the moment we're nailing down a manufacturer, a marketing trial partner, and a program for this over the next 12 to 24 months as we come to the US. If you'd told me a couple of years ago our first product in the US would be a cancer vaccine for dogs, I would have said no, of course not. But that's the reality. That's what's happened. And we're very excited about taking the cancer vaccine technology into a human safety study in Australia this year. There's a lot of interest in it. The last thing I'll talk about is, just keeping an eye on the time here. We very quickly, when we were doing our very early technology development back in 2008, we realised that it's not all about what the cells differentiate into, as many of you know, it's what the cells secrete that makes a difference. So what we did to test that when we were doing our early work in vets is that we took the secretions, or what some of you may know as conditioned media, and actually used that as a therapeutic. So we injected conditioned media into the joints of arthritic animals that were otherwise going to be put down. So this is not induced disease, this is wear and tear in labs and German shepherds. And what we found was that the effect actually mirrored what cells do, except within 30 days we saw it wear off quite quickly. So it was a short-lived experience for those animals in terms of pain and the quality of life management. And so what we decided to do is said, well, this is not going to work compared to cells as a technology. So we looked for something where those secretions could actually be reapplied regularly. We started looking at inflammatory diseases in dogs, particularly around skin conditions, and then we moved it into developing a stem cell secretion-based product for humans. We put that out into the medical, we put that out with a number of doctors who are specialists in this area. They've trialled it, and they find that it's particularly effective for a range of inflammatory skin conditions. You can see them on the screen. Acne is an easy one. It manages redness down very quickly. Psoriasis, dermatitis, very good on removing pain from stings and burns. And so we're left with this problem as what do we do with it in terms of what is our target. So we've got lots of feedback from the market, which is the way we like to do things. And now we have to work out which is the smartest pathway for us to go. We've learned how to manufacture it at scale. Interestingly, the cosmetics industry is interested in talking to us about whether this secret ingredient can appear in cosmetics product without too much trouble, but we're a therapeutics business. We're interested in having a therapy for difficult skin conditions, particularly acne. Most acne products, as you may know, those who don't want to be on steroids, tend to live with a benzoic acid-based product, which is a drying agent. So it really doesn't attack the redness and the inflammation, and we found this particularly useful on dealing with nasty inflamed skin. And it doesn't surprise many of you intuitively when you think about what stem cell secretions do. They're very good on anti-inflammatories and healing. So look, I've got... sorry, how much time have I got? I'm out of time. Anyway, just to remind you, we do see ourselves as a little different in this space. I think we're the only people here who started life as a vet med company and sort of morphed into a vet med plus human business. And I think that's given us a couple of advantages actually in terms of product development. We do run an autologous and allogeneic platform, which makes us a little different as well. And we have thrown into our portfolio an immunotherapy for cancer. So we see ourselves as having that diversity and a distinctive competitive positioning. And the early revenues helps us defray some of our burn, and we hope that, in fact, the vet products alone will be enough to sustain this business over the next 24 months. And so we think that the biggest driving revenues for this company in the short term will be veterinary products, and over the long term will be human products. Thank you very much.